Good evening, Commissioner Fain.
Good evening, Madam Chair. How are you doing this evening?
Doing great. How about you?
I have dropped my kids off over at Mama and Papa's house, so it's very quiet right now.
Great. Good evening, Commissioner Walkinshaw.
Good evening. It's wonderful to be here with everyone.
Good to see you. Let's begin. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Augustine, the chair of the Washington State Redistricting Commission. I would like to welcome everyone to this public outreach meeting, the 13th of this 2021 redistricting cycle. The topic of discussion tonight is Congressional Districts 3 and 6, and the legislative districts included within the 3rd and the 6th congressional districts. I'll have more to say about that later, but first, let's kick things off with a video message from the commissioners. Maria?
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Augustine. I'm the chair of the Washington State Redistricting Commission, recently chosen by the 4 voting members of the commission to facilitate and to lead this effort.
Hello, everyone. I'm Commissioner April Sims.
I'm Commissioner Joe Fain.
I'm Commissioner Brady Pinheiro-Walkinshaw.
I'm Commissioner Paul Graves. I'm one of 4 voting members recently appointed by the state legislative leadership of the Washington State Redistricting Commission.
Once a decade, we redraw our congressional and state legislative district boundaries using data the Census Bureau collected last year, reflecting changes made to the population in the last 10 years.
States across the nation handle redistricting in different ways.
In Washington, the state constitution and law establish an independent redistricting commission.
As commission members, we've committed ourselves to a process that is open,
transparent,
and credible.
These maps will belong to all the people of Washington.
With that in mind, we encourage you to help us draw your WA.
The commission will hold virtual public outreach meetings focused on populations residing in each of Washington's 10 congressional districts,
as well as additional outreach meetings to be scheduled soon.
Live Spanish and American Sign Language interpretations will be available for each of these meetings.
With your unique insights about the community, we will work to ensure a credible redistricting process, resulting in maps reflecting fair representation for all Washingtonians.
Please take part. After all, it's really your map.
So come help us draw your WA.
Help us draw our WA.
Come help us draw your WA.
So please help us draw your WA.
Thank you, Maria. To maximize the number of opportunities for public input, the second round of public comment will be hosted by a bipartisan dyad, that is, one commissioner from each of the major parties. We adopted this strategy to ensure that residents of each congressional district would have at least 2 opportunities for public comment. All comments heard will be recorded in the official record and reviewed by all 4 of the voting commissioners. This evening, we are joined by Commissioner Fain and Commissioner Walkinshaw. To those of you from the public joining us this evening, welcome again. It is my goal as chair to facilitate a process that is as participatory, fair, and equitable as is possible. I will endeavor to engage communities across Washington as fully as I can and to hear and address your concerns and requests. Throughout our tenure as commissioners, we will hear public comments that are important and we will listen to you. I will do my best to synthesize the comments and we will endeavor to respond as we are able. Still, it is possible that you will bring forward in your public comments ideas, requests, and injustices that we may not be able to address. We will certainly deliberate on the issues where we do have jurisdiction. Where we don't, I will do my best to refer you to those who may be able to respond more effectively. Let's begin by reviewing our purpose and values. Together as a commission, we have agreed on the following values and mission: to provide an open, transparent, and credible process that is grounded in statute and where all voices are welcome and there's access for everyone. To conduct ourselves with transparency, respect, and civility, where commissioners will participate and negotiate in good faith. And to meet the deadline outlined by law and produce the best possible maps. You may be aware that because of the pandemic, the redistricting cycle promises to be a challenging one. While we should have received the data from the Census Bureau that we need to begin to redistrict by April 1st of this year, we don't expect to have that data until mid to late August. Nonetheless, in late April, the Census Bureau did deliver to the President and the nation apportionment data, which told us which states would gain seats in the US Congress and Electoral College and which would not. Based on that data, we know that in the last decade, the population of our state grew by 14.6% and added approximately 1 million residents. Despite that population growth, it did not change the number of congressional seats we are entitled to. Washington will continue to have 10 representatives in the US House of Representatives. Based on the population growth in the state, our job as the Redistricting Commission is to distribute as equally as is practical the population among 10 congressional districts and 49 legislative districts. Based on the population growth, based on the census data from April, Washington has a population of 7,705,281 residents as of April 1st, 2020. Therefore, we need to draw 10 congressional districts that are compact, contiguous, and convenient, and made up of approximately 770,528 residents, and 49 new legislative districts that are also compact, contiguous, and convenient, and made up of approximately 157,251 residents. Statute also instructs us, as much as it's practical, to minimize drawing district lines that cut through counties, municipalities, or communities of interest. The Commission is committed to applying these principles while we try to create equally proportioned districts. So while we know the overall population of the state, according to the census, we don't yet know the particulars of percentage growth across neighborhoods, towns, cities, and counties. State population estimates of the last 10 years do give us a relatively good idea of where our 7.7 million residents live and which districts will need to get larger in area to add more residents and which districts will need to get smaller in order to shed residents. And as we add or subtract neighbors for one district, it will cause the need to make corresponding adjustments to the neighboring districts. To show you broadly, Maria, can you put up the first map? This map shows Washington State and its 10 congressional districts. The darker the brown colors, the more the district needs to grow in size, and the darker the teal colors, the more the district needs to shrink in size. Regarding the topic of discussion tonight, the 3rd and 6th congressional districts. The map indicates that the 3rd congressional district, according to state population estimates, has slightly less residents than the needed 770,000 residents to make it proportional. It will need to find additional residents. The 6th congressional district currently has less residents than the needed 770,000 residents to make it proportional. Depending on the final numbers we get from the Census Bureau, it looks like this congressional district may have to absorb a few more residents. Next slide, please, Maria. The 3rd congressional district includes all of legislative districts 17, 18, and 49, and parts of legislative districts 2, 14, 19, and 20. The 6th congressional district includes all of legislative districts 23, 24, and 26, and parts of legislative districts 19 and 35. Based on state population estimates, we can see that the 2nd, 17th, and 18th have more than the 157,000 residents that each district should have. They'll have to give up some residents, while the 14th, 19th, 20th, 23rd, 24th, 26th, 35th, and 49th have less than the needed 157,000, and they will have to grow to absorb more residents. Next slide, please, Maria. Here is a zoomed in map of the eastern portion of the 6th congressional district. Here, you can see that the 6th congressional district also includes parts of legislative districts 27, 28, and 29. Based on state population estimates, we can see that the 27th, 28th, and 29th have less than the 157,000 residents that each district should have, then they'll have to grow to absorb some more residents. Thank you, Maria. So that's just a brief overview of the challenge that your Redistricting Commission faces this year. In essence, commissioners have to create a new puzzle out of the state, and the puzzle pieces have to contain nearly exactly the same population. As we make one puzzle piece smaller, its adjacent puzzle pieces will need to absorb those additional areas, meaning that every time a boundary is moved, it creates a cascade of changes in surrounding districts. The purpose of our meeting tonight is to listen to your input about your community and how to ensure that the districts are fairly balanced in terms of population, but also respect shared community interests. The commission may not be able to meet every interest, but as commissioners try to weigh the trade-offs inherent in this process, your opinions are welcome and important. This evening, we have 81 individuals who signed up to testify. We're going to invite individuals in groups of 4 to testify. Each individual will have 2 minutes to offer their comment. After 4 people have testified, we will see if the commissioners have any questions of the 4 testifiers, and then we will move to the next group. With that summary, Sean, let's begin. Please call the first panel.
Good evening, commissioners. Our first panel will begin with Rick George. Then we will next go to Donna Boyes, Erica Cloth, and then Andrea Marzetti. If we can begin with Rick, and then we'll go down to Donna. Donna, I see you are first. If you can actually turn on your video, unmute yourself and begin your testimony, please. Erica, I see your video is on. We'll begin with you then, if you can unmute yourself.
I'm ready now.
Okay, Rick, we'll go with you. I cannot hear Erica. So Rick, please begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Rick George. I live in Klickitat County, part of the 3rd Congressional and the 14th Legislative Districts. I recently retired after 11 years serving as a school principal for the White Salmon Valley School District. Klickitat County needs to stay in the 3rd Congressional District. We are much more tied to the Vancouver-Portland metro area than we are to Yakima or any of the cities of South Central and Southeast Washington State. More and more, our economy depends upon high-tech industries, which in turn depend upon transportation corridors to the Vancouver-Portland metropolitan region. Many of our citizens work in the Vancouver-Portland area. Many of our students go to colleges there. Our school districts are connected to Educational Service District 112 in Vancouver. Our media hub is the Vancouver-Portland region. In turn, many residents in the Vancouver-Portland metro area frequent our county for its numerous recreation opportunities. It would be grossly inappropriate to place Klickitat County in the 4th Congressional District, as some sample maps have done. All our major connections are to the west, not the east. Please keep Klickitat County in the 3rd Congressional District. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the views of citizens of Klickitat County.
Thank you very much for your input.
Our next panelist, Andrea, I believe that you are ready. You look ready. If you can begin your testimony, please.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Marzetti. I live in the 49th Legislative District in the Lakeshore community of Vancouver. The 49th District includes Central and Western Vancouver and is abutted on the east by the 17th, which includes Eastern Vancouver, and on the north and west by the 18th, which includes the communities of Salmon Creek and Philida. I'm here tonight to ask the Commission to strongly consider grouping communities of interest and convenient contiguous geographic boundaries when redrawing these 3 districts. Preliminary 2020 census data indicate that the 49th will likely need to add voters to meet the criteria for equal population, while both the 17th and the 18th will likely need to reduce voters. I believe that an obvious and easy partial solution would be to include Salmon Creek and Philida in the 49th with Lakeshore. The communities share natural geographic boundaries and use the same City of Vancouver and Clark County services. Philida and Salmon Creek also have much more in common with Greater Vancouver than with cities like Ridgefield and Battleground to the north in the 18th. In terms of major roads, economy, and schools, for example, Vancouver School District stretches into Philida. The 3 communities are also a part of the Vancouver urban growth area. Including these 3 communities in the 49th would help reduce population in the 18th, as well as eliminate some of the seemingly geopolitical boundaries currently in the 18th and 49th. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I recognize and appreciate the challenges commissioners face in drawing district. I wish you success in ensuring that this redistricting outcome reflect both the intent and spirit of the law across the state.
Thank you very much for your input. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much. We will now go to Erica. I see that you are ready. If you can, I cannot hear you. Erica, you may have to go to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, right next to the microphone. There should be a arrow pointing up. Click on that and select a different microphone. In the meantime, we will go to Donna. If you can unmute yourself and please begin your testimony. Donna, are you able to begin? Okay, Erica, I am still not able to hear you, unfortunately. Erica, we can come back to you later if that works best. We'll try one more time for Donna if you want to begin your testimony. In that case, Erica will come back to you, and hopefully you're able to get your microphone fixed with that. And Chair, that will be the end of this panel.
Thanks, Sean. So I want to ask at this point if the commissioners have questions or comments for the members of this panel. Okay, seeing none, thank you for your time. You are now excused. Sean, please call the next panel.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Harold Hansen, Irene Finley, Joe Keir, and Judy Weber. We will begin with Harold and then move on to Irene. Harold, if you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself and begin your testimony, please.
Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes, welcome.
All right, I'm a PCO 622 and 17th LD, 3rd Congressional District. My biggest concern is the delay in the accuracy of the census, because without those numbers, I'm not sure that the ones that you have are correct. Whenever I'm in a group of people, I always ask how many of them completed their census, and out of 100, there's probably 20 that didn't. And there's probably a whole lot more than that that are either illegal, perhaps on social services. I'd like to see a better effort to get an accurate head count for Clark County. We're huge, we're blowing up in the 17th. So I'd just like to see that addressed. DNV and social services to supplement the census, I think would be a really good idea. And I'm also really disappointed that I think our district's the 4th largest and we don't have a member on the commission. So thanks for giving me a minute to address my concerns.
Thank you very much. We sure appreciate you taking the time to speak with us this evening.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Judy, I see that you look like you're ready and you're unmuted. If you can begin your testimony, please.
Thank you for providing this opportunity to testify. I'm most concerned about the state legislative districts. I am a recently retired clinical psychologist, a hay farmer, and a steward of timberland. I have lived at the same address in North Clark County for 44 years. And until the last redistricting, I had no complaints with legislative boundaries and have been active politically, including a stint as Democratic precinct chair. At the last redistricting, we were essentially disenfranchised. A narrow band of North Clark County was tossed into the 20th, with most of Cowlitz and Lewis and a significant chunk of Thurston. Clark County residents are such a small portion of the district that our interests and concerns receive little attention from our state representatives and senator. Frankly, they do not need our votes. Our interests and concerns align with Clark County residents, not those of the 3 counties to the north. Almost all of our shopping, medical, and business activities occur within the boundaries of Clark County, with a small percentage in Portland, less than 1% in Cowlitz, and none in Thurston or Lewis. We are in the watershed of the East Fork of the Lewis River, which lies primarily within the 18th district, and in the Center District School District, which is also in the 18th. Our 20th district representatives and senator have little knowledge or interest in our environmental and educational concerns. We belong in the 18th. Even the Columbian, our wonderful independent newspaper, forgets that there are residents and subscribers living in the 20th, often admitting election results in the 20th, and almost never reporting on the actions and views of our representatives and senator. We are truly cut off politically. I implore you to restore us to a district that coincides with Clark County boundaries and allows us to have a voice.
I'm sorry that your time is elapsed. And I wonder, Maria, if you would give her a mic just for one more minute. Would you please state your name for the record? I'm sorry.
Judy
yes.
Walker Weber.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate that. All right. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Of course, Chair Irene, if you can please begin your testimony.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for hearing my testimony tonight. My name is Irene Finley. I have voted in the 49th Legislative District in Vancouver for over 30 years. At our last public outreach meeting in May, many people said that their voices were not heard due to the way our legislative districts are drawn. A Republican cannot get elected in the 49th, the Democrat can't get elected in the 18th. Balanced districts seem to be the best fix for this problem. This is especially true since the commission is comprised of 2 voting commissioners from each major political party. Unless you decide to play a game of Go Fish, the easiest course for you is to put your energy into creating competitive balanced districts when that is realistic. While the official census data is not yet out, I used Dave's redistricting tool to create a map for Southwest Washington with what I think may be more balanced legislative districts. I sent that to you earlier today with my testimony. Simply put, move the 49th north to the county line, move the 17th east along the Columbia to the county line. The remainder of Clark County, along with all of Skamania County, remains in the 18th district. For a more competitive and compact congressional district, have as few counties as possible in a congressional district. Consider splitting Cowlitz and Lewis counties north and south rather than east and west between the 20th and the 22nd districts, with the extra population from the 22nd moving into Thurston County. Thank you for your commitment to this effort, for listening to all of us from across the state, from hiring staff who are respectful and responsive. Unless you have any questions, have a good evening and a wonderful summer day tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you taking the time to share with us this evening. The commissioners will have the opportunity to ask you questions at the end of this panel. Thank you. So Sean, I think we just have one more speaker on this panel.
That is correct, Chair. Our final speaker for this panel will be Joe Keir. I see that you're ready. If you can begin your testimony, please.
Hi, my name is Joe Keir. I live in Skamania County, and I wanted to just point out that Skamania County, along with Clark County, is part of the Portland-Vancouver Statistical Metropolitan Area, or Metropolitan Statistical Area. We have a community interest in Skamania County with Eastern Clark County and also rural Clark County. Right now, we're in the 14th LD, and it's populated mainly by the metro area around Yakima, which is pretty far from us, and that's not really our community of interest. Likewise, I hope that Skamania County will remain in the same CD with Vancouver in the 3rd, because that is where we have common interests. In looking at constructing CDs, please consider, and I know you're trying to, not splitting LDs. LD 14 currently split between CD 3 and CD 4, and it's problematic in terms of trying to organize. But I would just urge you to keep Skamania County in CD 3 along some of the arguments that we heard earlier, and all from Klickitat County, and also if you could align us in Skamania County with Clark County in terms of an LD, because I believe that we are pretty much aligned with the common interests of folks in rural and eastern Clark County, and that's our community of interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you taking the time to share with us this evening. At this time, I'd like to ask the commissioners if you have questions or comments for the folks on this panel. Okay, seeing none, thank you very much for your time and for joining us. You're now excused. Ron, would you please call the next panel?
Of course, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Mary Lyons, Meg Mcnicholas, Sasha Bentley, and Sue Rutherford. We will begin with Sue. And I see Sasha has actually connected first. So Sasha Bentley, if you can turn on your video, unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Hi, my name is Sasha Bentley and I live in rural White Salmon, Washington. I ran for LD 14 state representative in 2018. I drove over 50,000 miles because where I live is 2 hours from the city of Yakima, which has the biggest population in LD 14. During my campaign, I learned about the previous redistricting process that split up the city of Yakima and Yakima Nation. During the campaign, I heard from many voters who were confused about what district they lived in, who their representatives are. And I heard from voters across the whole district. I found that the city of Yakima has vastly different issues than the rest of the LD, which is more rural. And I think we need more rural voices in our state house. So I took the time to write a super short testimony today in between being a new mom and full-time worker. And I just ask that you keep Yakima Nation together this time, including the river tribes. That's the most important thing about redistricting here. And I also ask that the new LD 14 includes rural parts of South Central Washington and leave the city of Yakima to its own LD. So each LD is represented by rural and urban representatives respectively. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We recognize that you're busy and we appreciate you taking the time to spend with us here this evening. Sean, if you'd call the next testifier, please.
Of course, Chair. Our next testifier will be Mary Lyons. If you can, please begin your testimony.
Thank you very much. My name is Mary Lyons. I live in Longview and I'm in District 19. Our county has been split up between the two different districts, and the division that it causes is really counterproductive to the feeling of regional community. So I'm hearing that from a number of other speakers tonight. And the splitting up of a county is especially detrimental to the identity of the people as they consider who to vote for and what candidates speak for them. So I would really like to encourage the commission to try harder not to split up the counties and let the counties serve together and build their own community and get that feeling of activism that we really need and really does help the whole region work more effectively and supportive of each other. Thanks.
Thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening and share your opinion. So if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next speaker will be Sue Rutherford. If you can, please begin.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. As a resident, my name is Sue Rutherford. I live in CD3, LD 19. I've lived here decades, not just a few years, and I have noticed that splitting up, like Mary referred to, was detrimental. It's as if we can't have an identity of our own. We're somebody else's stepchild. I really appreciate that we could belong to a CD or a legislative district that would incorporate us into the decision making that's so necessary for the people of our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We sure appreciate your input. Sean, if you would follow the last testifier for this panel, please.
Absolutely, Chair. The last testifier for this panel will be Meg Mcnicholas. I see you're unmuted. If you can turn your video on and begin your testimony, please.
You know, I don't think I have video, but I can just
That's totally
testify.
fine.
Okay.
Please begin.
Good evening. My name is Meg Mcnicholas and I live in the 49th district. I want to speak about redistricting now as the process is beginning because I believe in one person, one vote. I am proud to live in a state where climate change, voting rights, and diversity is important to the majority of the citizens who live here. The Columbia River brings recreation to our local residents as well as a healthy tourist trade. The bike paths and sidewalks are now connecting our diverse neighborhoods. I would hate to see drill rigs and oil terminals taint our neighborhoods or attempt to again. The majority of voters worked and testified and held rallies and showed up and voted this down. The oil car trains are on our watch list as we are a very active community in advocating for clean air, rivers, lakes, and byways. The 49th is a diverse district. We have rich, poor, middle class, and houseless. We have a dynamic senior population who are active, engaged, and informed. We have some of the poorest schools and some of the biggest houses. We have a robust industrial area and innovative businesses. The breweries and eateries are making names for themselves throughout the Pacific Northwest, but we also have less than minimum wage jobs and huge drug and mental health issues. The nonprofits and community organizations working on these issues in my district are models for the rest of the country. This district is busy in its diversity. Gerrymandering is cheating. No packing, no cracking. I want to make sure that we have fair districts drawn so we can continue to have one person, one vote, and continue to have free and fair elections. You cannot have one without the others. I ask that you will ensure that the districts are drawn to be inclusive, competitive, and compact. Thank you for listening.
Thanks very much for choosing to be here with us this evening. At this time, I would like to ask the commissioners if you have questions or comments for the folks on this panel. Commissioner Walkinshaw.
I'll just say thank you. Thank you all for your testimony. Just really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing those thoughts. And we're here listening. Thank you.
All right. With that, I'd just like to thank you for being here and for sharing your thoughts with us and points of view. You are now excused. Ron, if you would please call the next panel.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Theresa Purcell, Tracy Rushing, Alexandra Pildu, and then Elisa Lee. If we can begin with Theresa. Theresa, if you're able to turn on your video, unmute yourself, and please begin your testimony. Okay, we will go to Tracy Rushing. Perfect, you turn your video on if you can begin your testimony.
Sure, glad to be here. Appreciate you guys for doing this. So my name's Tracy Rushing. I'm a resident of Klickitat County, Legislative District 14 and Congressional District 3. I'm a pediatrician and an ER physician here locally and see a diverse group of families and individuals throughout our area. I have three priorities when I look at redistricting. The first is for our 3rd Congressional District. In that sense, I'd like to echo what some of the other panelists have said with our need to stay in Congressional District 3. Klickitat County, Skamania County, we share much more in common with Clark County and the rest of the Gorge region in particular than we do with the Central Washington area around the Yakima region. The second has more to do with Legislative District 14, and I think it should be an absolute priority that Yakima Nation is held together. I think the division between Legislative District 14 and 15 for Yakima Nation does a huge disservice to that community and to the river tribes in that region. Additionally, it is not representative of the views or the interests of the groups of people who live up there versus down here. Their voices cannot be heard. So I hope that's a priority in redistricting the legislative districts in that area. Thank you.
Thanks very much. We sure appreciate your input. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Of course, Chair, our next speaker will be Theresa Purcell. If you can please begin your testimony.
Thank you so much to the Commission for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am Theresa Purcell. I live in the 3rd Congressional District and the 19th Legislative District. I would urge you very strongly to consider making our counties whole with Pacific, Wahkiakum, Cowlitz, and going into North Clark County, because Woodland is actually divided in our community, rather than having the 20th Legislative District and the 19th Legislative Districts going side by side. I was a candidate in 2016, and having Grays Harbor in the district is actually, it's a 4.5-hour drive on not very good roads, and we get forgotten. On the congressional side, I would really, really strongly encourage moving the 6th Congressional District down into Pacific, Cowlitz, and Wahkiakum counties, because the reality is that Congressman Derek Kilmer is an excellent advocate for rural communities, and we need that. Right now, we are left behind. Our rural communities are struggling, and we need somebody who's going to fight for us at every level of government. And I appreciate your time and your opportunity to testify, but please make our counties whole, make our communities whole, and make sure that our rural voices can actually be heard in these processes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you taking the time to share your views with us this evening. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next speaker will be Elisa Lee. I see your video's on. If you can unmute yourself and begin your testimony, please.
Good evening, Commission members, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Elisa Lee, and I've lived and voted in the 6th Congressional District my whole life. I'm really excited to be here tonight and be able to talk about my lived experiences as well as statistical fact. I grew up at the edge of the Olympic National Park in Port Angeles, but I've spent the last 10 years living in Tacoma, where I fell in love with its diverse communities. I currently live on the border of the 27th Legislative District in the Hilltop neighborhood. Working as a community organizer over the years has given me a deep understanding of Tacoma and its communities. I'm proud to say that I've canvassed the city twice. Having done that, I can tell you for a fact that diverse communities are barely reflected in government leadership. Hilltop, for example, is a minority-majority neighborhood, but it falls into the 27th, which doesn't really reflect the Hilltop community. Same thing is going on the east side. There you have the Lincoln International District, which has many Asian businesses and is also majority persons of color, and that too falls into the 27th. Meanwhile, diverse neighborhoods in the South End and Ferndale fall into the 29th, while Lakewood is in the 28th. You also have the Puyallup Reservation, which is attached to the 25th, and they don't really have a good shot at representation there either. All the areas I've just mentioned are majority minority and have been split into different districts and don't allow for proper representation. Communities of color represent between 50 to 58% of the population in these areas based on District R. Unfortunately, very few of the electeds currently and over the years reflect the community. Splitting us up has made it very difficult for us to elect representatives that understand our needs and issues. When redrawing our maps, I ask that the Commission not divide us and redraw our communities in ways that allow representation for Black, Asian, Pacific Islander, Latinx, and Indigenous peoples. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We really appreciate your input. Sean, if you would call our final speaker for this panel, please.
Of course, Chair, our final speaker will be Alessandra. If you can, please begin your testimony.
Hi, my name is Alejandra Pulido. I am part of the 35th Legislative and 6th Congressional, and I'm here to encourage to put, if we can put Bremerton in one legislative district, as we are split into 3, I believe. It seems like people of color don't have much of a voice. The Latinx community in Washington is growing, and we wish to have representation. If you live in a 23rd district, legislators listen to opinions of people only in Bainbridge and North Kitsap and not to those in Bremerton. Those who live in 35th district, legislators only listen to those in Mason County and don't come to Bremerton to find out the opinions of the voters here. And if you live in 26, I believe, legislators listen to voters in Gig Harbor and Port Orchard. And that is my whole testimony. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate you taking the time to think about how, your experience and then to share that with us. We appreciate that. So at this time, I'd like to ask the commissioners if you have questions or comments for the folks on this panel. Okay, seeing none, I would like to thank you for coming and sharing with us. I recognize it takes time and effort, especially thank you for those who write your comments and send them to us. You're now excused. And Sean, if you'd call the next panel, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next panel will begin with Anna Mockler, Bill Buchanan, Eliza Swanich, I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing your last name, and Kelly Donaldson. Anna, if we can begin with you, please.
Good evening, panel, and thank you for doing this. I am Anna Mockler. I'm a PCO of the 26th LD, the 22nd Precinct. I'm calling for Bremerton, now divided among 3 LDs, the 23rd, the 26th, the 35th, to be included in 1 LD. Bremerton's one city, it's got one city government, it has clear physical boundaries and a strong sense of community. It is more diverse than its surroundings. The voices of its diversity are diluted and lost when Bremerton is split into 3 legislative districts as it is now. So I'm asking you to unite Bremerton inside one LD. You have 3 choices: the cosmopolitan 23rd LD that contains Bainbridge Island, the extremely homogeneous 26th LD that stretches south to Gig Harbor, or the expanses of the 35th LD along both shores of the Hood Canal. Members of the panel, LDs are over 60,000 people. Bremerton is less than 45,000. This is doable. Here, up till now, I've been reflecting the voices of my precinct and my district. So now I'm giving you my personal vote, which is for the 26th LD. Only about a quarter of Bremerton is inside it now, yet we still elected Emily Randall, Senate Majority Leader to the Washington Senate, and including all of Bremerton in the 26th LD would give us a voice. But however the district lines fall, may they place all of Bremerton inside one legislative district. Please give us our collective voice. I'd also like to add that anecdotal evidence, I worked the census in 2020 and I included every flippin' household that I possibly could. I returned multiple times and I was not unique. People were exhausting themselves attempting to complete a full census. Y aquí en Bremerton hay un montón de gente que habla español, hispanohablante. Thank you for the opportunity to comment, and I would like to congratulate Alejandro Pulido for her testimony. Good evening.
Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us this evening. Sean, if you would call the next speaker, please.
Of course, Chair, our next speaker will be Elijah. I see your video is on. If you can unmute yourself and begin your testimony, please.
Good evening, members of the Commission. Thank you for taking the time tonight. I reside in the 6th Congressional District and the 27th LD, and have ever since I could register to vote. And the concern I'd like to bring before you tonight is primarily with congressional districts. I'm a proud resident of the city of Tacoma, and I find that our city and where I live is right at the places where 3 different far-flung congressional districts collide with each other, none of which are known for being the district that represents Tacoman interests. We're divided between representatives that speak for the entire Olympic Peninsula, those that speak for the state capitol down in Olympia, those that speak for various suburbs of South Seattle. And the result of that is that it has been for the last decade a significant struggle for us to get people in Congress who will speak to Tacoman interests, who will bring focus on badly needed EPA cleanup projects in our port and among the smelteries that line Ruston Way. It's simply something that we can't do with the way districts are currently set up. The city is divided between districts that are not able to represent us, and I would ask you please that as you redraw those lines, consider putting more or at least most of Tacoma in the same district, such that we're able to elect somebody that truly represents our city. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being with us this evening and sharing your thoughts. John, if you'd call the next testifier, please.
Chair, Kelly, I see your video's on. If you can unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Hi, my name is Kelly Donaldson, and I'm a resident of Kitsap County for almost 28 years now. In those 28 years, I've worked in merchandising, then sales, and for the last 24, I've worked as a real estate appraiser. 5 years ago, I added my real estate broker license to that as well. As an appraiser, I've covered Kitsap, Jefferson, Clallam, and the Hood Canal Belfair region of Mason County extensively, so I know that District 6 is a very special area. I chose to live on this side of the water as we have very few truly urban areas. We value our space and there is a sense of community here. And we are growing fast, and a major factor of that growth is people leaving King County. Since this redistricting is for the next 10 years, I sincerely hope that you put a lot of weight on growth projections and not just the census, which doesn't take into account the recent influx of the new residents to our region. I also want to say that I strongly oppose breaking up school districts like has happened to Bremerton. This practice dilutes the voice of the parents, and the voice of the parents is the voice for our future. This is tricky. Race is not mentioned in the law from what I've seen, and I have read the laws regarding the criteria, but I've also read your lenses, and the first and second ones listed are race and ethnicity. This could lead one to believe that the redistricting committee believes that race causes people to want the same things for their community, have the same values or beliefs. I believe that we are all individuals and a person's values are not based on race, but on who that person is as an individual. I would suggest that race not come into play. In 28 years of covering the majority of District 6, I can honestly say that I have never, not once, been in a neighborhood that could be defined by race here in this county, or the 4 counties. As a member of a family with a highly diverse racial makeup, I believe that's a truly beautiful thing. We can't rely on race to say that that's going to give us a general opinion.
I'm sorry that your time has elapsed, and so we do look forward to reading your full comment if you're willing to submit it to us by email. Thank you very much for taking the time to share your thoughts with us this evening. Sean, if you call the final testifier for this panel, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Our final panelist will be Bill Buchanan. If you can, please begin your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Bill Buchanan, and I live in Sequim. I'd like to say that I appreciate living in a state where redistricting is fair and non-political. I'm proposing a congressional district map for the state that keeps counties whole to the maximum extent possible, as many presenters tonight have requested, with districts that are compact and easily and logically connected by the highway system. My proposal for District 6 includes the peninsula counties of Clallam, Jefferson, Grays Harbor, Mason, and Kitsap in entirety, plus the northwest portion of Pierce across the Narrows, plus Olympia, and enough of western Thurston and northern Pacific County to reach the district population target. This will result in a peninsula-centric, concise, and compact district. This proposal will also benefit Tacoma, which currently is split, with the western portion of the city being in District 6. My proposal for District 3 moves Lewis County to District 10 in exchange for the south half of Benton County, so as to allow the remainder of eastern Washington to reside wholly in Districts 4 and 5, eliminating having Chelan and Kittitas counties joined with King-centric District 8. Thus, District 3 would run along the Columbia River counties, extending from Kennewick to enough of Pacific County to meet its population target. Why should we try to keep counties as whole as possible? Each county has their own political party organizations. Citizens take pride in their counties, especially rural ones. People do not like being jammed into illogical configurations. Keep our congressional districts compact, contiguous, convenient, and sensible. Thank you.
Thanks very much for your input and for the detail you provided to us. We appreciate that. At this time, I would like to ask the commissioners if you have questions or comments with members of. All right, seeing none, I want to thank you for your time and for taking the time to join us this evening. Now, please, Sean, if you would please call the next panel.
Absolutely, Chair. We are going to quickly return to the 2 testifiers who were unable to testify earlier, Donna Boyes and Erica Clough, and then we will go on to Larry Sequist and then Leslie Doakes. We will begin with Donna. If you can unmute yourself and please begin your testimony. Okay, Erica,
Are you ready for me?
Yes, please begin.
Okay, it took a minute for everything to turn on. For 20 years, I have been a resident of the Clairwood Community Association at the end of Bald Hill Road near Thurston County's Deschutes Falls Park. Clairwood and Bald Hill Road area have Yelm addresses. Our kids go to Yelm schools, and we support commerce and events in the Yelm City community, as we're located at the end of a long, pretty much dead-end highway just beyond the city of Yelm. The last time you guys drew districts, we became disenfranchised from participating in those elections, along with the Yelm City residents with their representatives that we know and matter most to us in the community we participate in. Instead, we were drawn in this Congressional District 3, which is pretty much South and Coastal Washington. We don't have any representation really by Lewis County. We don't go to Lewis County. Our highways don't really connect well with Lewis County. So it doesn't make sense to us. Going beyond Yelm, we're more likely to participate in Lacey and then Pierce County areas like DuPont, McKenna, Roy, and Spanaway. Basically the areas in the JBLM area. Clairwood has a large number of military residents, given the short distance to Eastgate, JBLM, which is between Roy and Spanaway. So many of us in Clairwood would appreciate your help getting us back with our Yelm community, our Yelm City community, which is in District 10, Legislative District 2, as we had been in the past, or somehow in how you draw this up, get us with the Yelm City. If you move them somewhere, we want to be with our friends over in the city of Yelm. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. We appreciate your input. Sean?
Donna, we will try to go back to you if you're able to begin your testimony.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes.
Wonderful. So I am Donna Boyes. I've lived in Skamania County for 29 years in Legislative District 14 and Congressional District 3. I have worked for a local company in Skamania for 15 years. Regarding the Legislative District 14, Skamania and Klickitat belong in the same district. We are both rural counties that share the Columbia River. Both have tourism, wineries, many of the same outdoor activities, rich history, and many of us work, see doctors, and recreate locally in White Salmon, Hood River, Vancouver. All those places are our choice to drive away from our home. Skamania does not deserve to move to Clark County Legislative District 17 or 18. Many people in the 14th Legislative District have moved away from Clark County up here. It looks like both of your proposed boundary line maps have moved Skamania County out of the 14th Legislative District, and I am opposed to this. The 3rd Congressional District. I am not in favor of adding Pierce County. One of the proposed boundary line maps adds the Indian Nation and keeps Klickitat County along with Skamania, Clark, Cowlitz, Lewis, Waikiakum, and removes Pacific and the small section of Thurston County. I am in favor of this map. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next speaker will be Larry Sequist. If you can please begin.
Good evening. I'm Larry Sequist, former state representative. It was my privilege to represent the 26th district, live in Gig Harbor. I'd like to make 2 quick points to you. One is that as you're redistricting in general, I think it's important that you look at the political balance. Over the last 3 cycles of redistricting, we've seen fewer and fewer swing districts. The 26th is one of those. And I think it's important that you look at that political balance so that the elections are determined in the general election, not in the primary. By allowing each party to tend to find happy lines for themselves, you end up even in very strong blue or strong red districts, disenfranchising 1/3, 40% or more of the citizens because the elections are determined in the primary. So I urge you to continue to look at that balance, try to get the most balance. Secondly, and disagreeing briefly with my friend from Bremerton and the young man from Tacoma, I think it's very important both for the 6th, that the 6th continue to share part of Tacoma, and that in general, major regional cities like Tacoma and Bremerton are split among a number of legislative districts. They're broad economic, cultural hubs, and that broader representation is valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Sean, if you'd call the final testifier for this panel, please.
Our final testifier will be Leslie. If you can unmute and please begin your testimony.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you today as you are deciding to redistrict the state of Washington. I am writing to you or speaking to you as a councilwoman for the city of Bremerton, a longtime resident of the city of Bremerton located in Kitsap County. Bremerton currently is represented in the 23rd Legislative District, 26th and 35th. Bremerton is the largest city within Kitsap County. Bremerton has by far the largest minority low-income families on the Kitsap Peninsula, which consist of African American, Pacific Islanders, Hispanics, Filipino, Kurdish, Native Americans, Guatemalan, and much more. For many decades, Bremerton has not been well represented by those in office. Many of those elected in the 23rd live in the Bainbridge Island area, while those living in the 26th live within Gig Harbor. Our representatives from the 35th live within Shelton. I love our neighbors in Gig Harbor, Bainbridge Island, and Shelton, but I do not feel that I, a child of immigrant parents, a member of the AAPI community, feel adequately represented, with Bremerton having to split with 3 districts, which are predominantly white as well as median income, much wealthier than Bremerton. The legislative district lines still are reflected by the old red line boundaries that weaken minority representation. Advocating for the city of Bremerton is a challenge, as one would have to speak to 9 legislators who do not know the uniqueness of Bremerton or sometimes forget that Bremerton is a part of their districts. We should put Bremerton in 1 district, not 3. I am advocating for Bremerton to be 1 district. Thank you so much. My name is Leslie Dowgs, female councilwoman, Filipino, and a longtime resident of Bremerton. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. At this time, I would like to ask the commissioners if you have questions or comments for the folks in this panel. Commissioner Walkinshaw.
Thank you, Commissioner Augustine. I just wanted to thank our council member from Bremerton for joining us. Thank you so much for your testimony. And thank you also to our former legislative colleague for joining us as well. So it's great to see you as well, Larry. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I would also like to make a comment for the folks on this panel, which is to say that the commission has not yet provided draft maps. So whatever draft maps you're looking at, they were not provided by the commission. We look forward to providing those when we have census data. So whatever maps you're looking at, I encourage you to look at all the maps you can. Just please understand they're not coming from this redistricting commission. Thank you. All right. With that, I'd like to thank you each for coming and sharing with us. And you are now excused. Sean, if you'd please call the next panel.
Of course, Chair. Our next panel will be Llewellyn Lucid, Mardell Gale, Sherry Dysart, and then Susan Griggs. If we can begin with the first panelist.
Is that myself?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. I am Llewellyn Lucid. I live in Gig Harbor and I'm in Legislative District 26, and I'm also in Congressional District 6. I've been aware for some time and heard again tonight the desire of the city of Bremerton to be in 1 legislative district instead of split amongst 3 districts. And I would just like to speak to the fact that I think Bremerton should reside in Legislative District 26. I think we have the most in common, and I also think that it would expand the district in an appropriate way. Since we already have a part of Bremerton in our district, having all of Bremerton would, I think, give Bremerton more of an impact in terms of their electorate. And we do have our state senator who lives in Bremerton, so they are already being represented by someone from Bremerton, and I think we can expand that if the entire city of Bremerton were to be placed within LD 26. Thank you very much for listening to my testimony.
Thank you. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Sean, if you'd please call the next speaker.
Absolutely, Chair. Our next speaker will be Maradel Gale. If you can please unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Thank you very much. My name is Maradel Gale. I'm a resident of Bainbridge Island. My comments tonight are going to be very brief. My enjoyment of my current legislative situation is that we have a sixth congressional district, which is very broadly covers a large population base that is a mixture of urban and rural. And I really appreciate that, because I think that fact requires our representative to have as much balance as possible between the concerns of the urban communities and the rural communities. And I think that's an asset that we need to encourage. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and for your comments. Sean, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Absolutely, Chair. Susan, I see your video's on. If you can unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Yes, thank you for letting me testify. My name is Susan Griggs, and I live in the Sequamish in the 23rd Legislative District. And I think it's very important that all communities feel that they have fair and effective representation, and that it's very important to preserve the communities of interest. As a resident of Sequamish, I think it's very important to have the tribal nations in one legislative district. So I would advocate for the Colville and the Yakima nations being in one legislative district. And if they are, then they will have more ability to represent the Native communities, and thus Native communities like the Sequamish Nation will also be represented in Olympia. I also am advocating that Bremerton be in one legislative district. The way that it has been broken into 3 districts means that people who are neighbors with others are in different legislative districts. And I think a lot of the people from diverse communities in Bremerton do not feel like they have any reason to vote, because the election will be determined by the voters either on Bainbridge Island or in Mason County or in Gig Harbor. The League of Women Voters is coming up with a map. It seems like Bremerton should go south and be part of the 26th instead of any other ways, and the 23rd could be taking some of the Mason County area. So I thank you very much for listening to my testimony, and I would like you to have the city of Bremerton and the Colville and Yakima tribal reservations all in one legislative district. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughts and for sharing those with us. Sean, if you'd please call the final panelist for this panel.
Of course, Chair. Our final panelist will be Sherry Dysart. I see your video's on. If you can unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Sherry Dysart. I live in Mason County, the traditional home of the Coast Salish peoples. I live in LD 35 and CD 6. In addition, I live in RIRA 14, that is Watershed Resource Inventory Area 14. My community of interest is RIRA 14. I serve on the Citizens Advisory Group of the RIRA 14 Committee. Although today I'm not speaking as an official representative of the committee. I would like to tell you why I think creating legislative districts in alignment with watershed resource inventory areas of Washington would be a powerful way to unite citizens in a positive, forward-looking framework. One of the most important ways that we can connect as people is to connect with the land. And one of the most important components of the landscape are the water resources therein. The Watershed Resource Management Act of 1998, RCW 90.82, resulted in creation of the RIRAs in the state. The law created a framework for developing local solutions to watershed issues on a watershed basis. Watersheds provide a natural framework for land use planning, including conservation and growth management. When we use, divert, or pollute water within a watershed, we are affecting all downstream inhabitants. As our population grows and water resources become more limiting, the potential for conflict becomes more acute. Using watersheds as the framework for making policy decisions makes sense from both the environmental and human perspectives. Thank you for listening to my testimony.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your point of view. At this time, I would like to ask the commissioners if you have questions or comments for the folks on this panel. Okay, seeing none, I really want to thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening. Your input is so important to this process, and we appreciate you and your leadership in coming forward and sharing with us. Now excused, and Sean, if you'd please call the next panel.
Of course, Chair, our first panelist will be Susan Young. Then we will go to Dana Thorpe, Jeffrey Olson, Johnny Hildreth, and that will be the remainder of this panel. Susan, I see your video is on. If you can please begin your testimony.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Susan Young. I'm a resident of Bremerton. I live in the 6th CD and the 26th LD. I'd like to echo many of the sentiments that Leslie Doggs spoke to earlier. The fact that Bremerton, the largest city on the peninsula, has been divided into 3 LDs reflects the history that's decades long of redlining that has taken place in this community. It weakens our population of persons of color, and it denies them the voice that they deserve to have in the community. In addition, I'd like to advocate not only for having people who live in the city limits be part of one district, but also that people who live in the surrounding county areas who have Bremerton mailing addresses, they consider themselves residents of Bremerton, even if they're not represented by the city government. And they are no happier about being lumped into, say, LD 35 and being tied together with folks in rural communities that go all the way down to Olympia, as are the people who live in the city boundaries who are not really reflected in our elected officials. I think that between Leslie and Anna Mockler and a couple of other people, they said everything else I would have said. So rather than be repetitive, I will thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. We sure appreciate your time and your presence and your comments. Ron, if you'd call the next speaker, please.
Of course, Chair, our next speaker will be Jeffrey Olson. If you can unmute yourself and please begin your testimony.
Greetings. I've covered myself so you don't see the light. Greeting for the 3rd and 6th Congressional District. I'm Jeff Olson. I'm from Medical Lake, Washington. I'm in the 5th and the 6th Legislative District. And I'd like to congratulate you. You did a better job of discussing how to change than the 4th and 5th did Saturday. Now, let me make a couple points. Making Bremerton 1 district is great, but they didn't say what they're going to do with the 23rd north of it or how they're going to adjust that. And I used to be in the Navy in Bremerton, so I know the town well. And some of my atlas claims that Port Orchard has more population than Bremerton. So it's an interesting question. I do like the way the 3rd and 6th gets down to the details, but some of them are pie in the sky details. And that there's I forget what it is, but Pierce County has over 220,000 people in the 6. Any idea of removing Pierce County from the 6 is a non-starter from the beginning. And you have to adjust for the gains from the King County before you start moving into the other counties. There was where I will stop.
Thank you. It's always good to see you. We're glad you're here. Thank you so much for your thoughts and your wisdom on what can happen in the 3rd and the 6th congressional districts. Sean, if you'd call the next panelist, please.
Of course, Chair. Johnny Hildreth, if you can please turn on your video, unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Good evening, Sean. Hello, Commission. I want to thank you for inviting me tonight and for having the public hearings. It's so interesting to me to hear everybody's opinions and everybody's research. I am a substitute teacher, the president of a local study club and a community volunteer. Well, I was until COVID happened. And I live in the Aberdeen area. I live in the town of Aberdeen in the 6th Congressional District, and I am very happy to be in this district. Derek Killer does an excellent job. He has been a fabulous representative. He answers the phone, he returns emails, and he asks questions. And when he comes in to work at the food bank, he rolls up his sleeves and he gets to work. My legislative district is a different story, but it's a story I've heard tonight several times about a community that's split up. We have a really strange map. If you look at it, if you look at the 24th district here, 24 where it meets 19, it looks like that video game Minecraft. It has they look like little Lego characters. Somebody was playing with that map and it looks very intentional. I feel like we share so much in this town with our roads and our water and our bridges and our zip code, but we have 2 separate districts. It doesn't make sense. We dilute our voice, we dilute our power as voters when we do that. I also want to support everybody who spoke in favor of Bremerton being pulled together. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am sending you my testimony with the map. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We sure appreciate that. And thank you for taking the time to submit a map. We really appreciate your thoughts and your insights. Sean, if you'd call the last speaker for this panel, please.
Of course, Chair. I am not sure if they are frozen or if that's a background, but Dina Thorpe, if you can please begin your testimony if you're able to.
Hi, this is Dina. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Great. Sorry, my video will bog down my voice. So
No problem. I'm glad you're here.
thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight, commissioners. I want to let you know my husband has been here over 30 years in Skamania County, the 14th district. I've been here 25 years, and we truly love our scenic area, a place for people to come visit and enjoy the recreational lifestyle here. We are not city folk. I work in Clark County. I drive there every day, and I enjoy coming back to where I live here, where I think our like-minded people would be. And I don't want to see our district move to Clark County. I'd like to keep us with Skamania, Yakima, and Klickitat, if that at all possible could happen. I think we're more like-minded, more farmers, more country living. There's not city folk here. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for taking the time to share your point of view with us and your experience in your community. Thank you. At this time, I want to ask the commissioners if you have questions or comments for the folks on this panel. Okay, seeing none, I want to thank you again, all of you, for spending this time with us this evening, and you are now excused. Sean, if you would please call the next panel.
So our final panelist chair, it's a single person, they're call-in. So the testifier who called in with the last phone number, the last three numbers of your phone number being 795, if you could please hit *6 to unmute yourself, and then you can begin your testimony. And again, for that individual who called in, please hit *6. And I'm getting no reaction, and they're not unmuting, Chair. So that would be
okay.
the last person.
So the person that called in, I recognize how frustrating it is to be trying to use technology that is maybe not, doesn't feel compatible with Zoom, or maybe it's the first time that you're trying to call in on Zoom. So I'm gonna give you just another minute to unmute yourself if you can by pressing *6. All right, well, what I want to encourage you to do, this is not the last public conversation that we're going to have as a Redistricting Commission. If you would look at our schedule and see another meeting that you may be able to call into, we really want to hear from you. I also encourage you to submit your comments via email if you're able to do that. And I apologize that it just didn't work out this evening. We do want to hear from you. At this time, I'd like to offer the commissioners an opportunity to give closing statements. Commissioner Fain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank everyone for taking time this evening. There was a lot of testimony tonight, and it's sometimes difficult to bounce between Southwest Washington and the Columbia River up to the island areas and the peninsula, and the issue that continues to come to the commission with regards to the city of Bremerton. So these are really complicated issues that everyone has done a great job presenting their point of view and offering justification for that point of view. I just think it's been very valuable for the commissioners to be able to hear that. So thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Fain. Commissioner Waukesha.
I would echo that gratitude. Thank you all for spending some of your evening with us. And I'm really impressed by the thought and the time that's gone into this. It is a really important task that we have ahead of us, and it's made easier and richer and more thoughtful as a result of your coming out this evening and sharing your thoughts and testimony. So thank you again, and I hope you have a restful evening.
Thank you. I want to thank members of the public for being part of this important process. In order for us to do this work effectively, we really need the input from you, and thank you for your leadership in choosing to be here this evening and to share your point of view. In order for us to have an effective and functioning democracy, we have to do this well, and we appreciate you joining with us as we embark on this work. I'd like to thank members of the Washington State Redistricting staff, including caucus staff, for your efforts and making this whole endeavor possible. I want to thank people that are interpreters tonight who make it possible for us to really carry out our mandate. Those people who are providing American Sign Language interpretation and Spanish language interpretation. Thank you. I would like to thank our court reporter who's providing us with a reliable record. And I would like to thank all the people who continue to make this possible, not the least of which is our commissioners, for your leadership, for your time, for your commitment, for your courage and confidence in embarking on this work. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm proud to be a Washingtonian. Thanks, everyone.